Welcome, everybody. Welcome to An Evening with Robert here on GHTR, the nation's podcast radio. I just want to thank our sponsors out there, surfgrandhaven.com, Anthony's Kicked Up Catering, and TJ's Lawn Service in Grand Haven, Michigan. Great night last night. Had a real good show with Night with Rob and Chris. Got a lot of comments about what was going on in town here, and it was actually pretty exciting, to say the least. And had a lot, like I said, had a lot of people comment right into the show and stuff like that. Also, there's all sorts of jobs available here in town. Culver's is actually hiring. Also, if you're looking to get that spring cleanup, give TJ's Lawn Service a call, and they'll come out there and take care of you rather quickly. So tonight, I've got a real special guest. I got another author here in the studio with me, or actually, he's via the phone, and his name is Kevin I'm sorry. Would you like to pronounce your name again?
It's Eads.
Eads. I'm sorry about that. Well, hey, Kevin. I'm just going to call you Kevin. So
that works.
All right. Kevin he's an author. He's really, I mean, this guy has quite the history behind him, and I'm going to let him actually tell his life story. So how you doing today, Kevin?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm hanging in there. I'm actually had a fulfilling day. Of course, I actually talked to you about that, and it seems things always happen at the wrong time, and today was one of those days that actually did that. So, but anyway, so how you been? And let's tell the listening audience out there who you are, where you come from, and how you got your start, and where you are today.
Alrighty, well, let's go. I'm actually originally from Fort Wayne, Indiana. I was born there, we'll just say a few years ago, and I grew up on a farm outside of town, and moved from country to city. So I've had both the city and country background.
Right.
I grew up in kind of a old world household. My grandmother came from France, so I got both the mix of old world, new world. Which influenced, and with the old world, you got a lot of stories, a lot of folklore, which can influence me. I did my undergraduate in Fort Wayne at Indiana University, the local campus, where I was student body president and a frat boy. So I got, again, the best of both worlds, the crazy frat boy days along with the serious student government days, before going to law school in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And then I ended up teaching law for about 8.5 years, which was a very rewarding experience. And one of my former students was actually had started a publishing company, and him and I had shared a very similar interest in horror movies and things of that nature, and we basically talked, and he decided to put out my first book. Through that, our friendship grew, of course, and multiple titles came out. I think I was driving him nuts. At one time, I think I put like 4 or 5 titles out within a year. And we started talking about a co-production called Eerie America, the travel guide of the macabre.
Right.
And the book has led to us filming a sizzle reel and working on pitching a show to the studios.
Okay, now, you're speeding through here. You need to slow down there, buddy. You went from
Sorry.
You just basically, now you grew up in Indiana. Now, where did you actually go to school at? You went to school in Indiana, right? And
yes, it's called Indiana Purdue Fort Wayne. It's the local extension of both Indiana and Purdue universities. It's one of two schools in the country that have 2 major universities on the same campus. The other is in Indianapolis, IUPUI.
Now, you studied law.
Afterwards, yes. Undergraduate, I was a history of political science, and then I went to law school at Nova Southeastern in Fort Lauderdale.
So, when you were growing up, when did you first know that you were a writer? I mean, when did you first come to the realization that you'd like to create stories, that you had a vivid imagination?
I would say I was probably writing since I was a little kid. I don't know the exact grade, probably elementary.
Right.
And I kind of put it aside for a while. And then I think it's very amusing. When I was in high school, I got involved in a rap group. Don't laugh. Well, you can laugh. It's fine. Because
you're a rapper?
Part of me. I was, and that was so long ago. I kind of try to pretend it doesn't exist, but yes, I was. And because again, it was an opportunity and an outlet to write. And I did a lot of that, and we actually recorded a couple songs that got used on soundtrack for an independent horror movie called Freak.
Oh, really?
Directed by Tyler Tharp. Yes, and it was fun to see it. But you look back now and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's me, and I was doing that.
Right. Well,
because you're so different. After that, I go to law school. I become this legal instructor, and my students could never imagine, me having this other side to myself.
Well, does this so now? What made you want to study law?
I was kind of uncertain what I was going to do. I had just finished my bachelor's in history, and I was going to go on and get my PhD in history. I was looking at that, and then I just had a conversation one night with my grandmother, when she was still alive, and we were talking, and she was mentioning, there's so many different areas of law you could study. You don't have to just do the traditional. You could do immigration or something. And I'm like, wow, that'd be interesting. And I went in for the intention of being an immigration attorney, but instead, as I say, after I graduated, I had no desire to practice law. You'll discover I don't know many lawyers who are happy practicing. The happiest attorneys I know are those that are no longer practicing. They're retired and they moved into something else.
Well, being an attorney by itself is a very big challenge. I work with a couple of attorneys, and one of the attorneys that I actually work with, she's a family court attorney, and I asked her one time. Actually, I'm actually getting ready to interview her here in a couple months, and I really want people to hear this woman. She's a really incredible woman. She's young, and one of the things she told me, she says one of the hardest things for her is trying to make the parents understand that they don't have to fight like they do. I mean, and being a lawyer, it's hard enough. So.
Yes.
It's like lawyers, I think, in my opinion, are uptight, and it's because they work their butts off, and
it's a stressful job.
Yeah. So I can understand why you didn't maybe want to stick with it. I mean, it's it is what it is. It's like one of those jobs you just say. But I'm sure you do give legal advice to a lot of people still, right?
Well, since I'm not actually practicing and not licensed here in the state, I can't actually give advice. But you can talk about things in theory and such. So.
Really? I mean, you mean to tell me that even though you can't give advice? I didn't know you couldn't do that. Really?
Yeah, no. Since you have to really be licensed to give advice. Yeah.
I never knew that. That blows.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, well, people get around it. I mean, I know a lot of people give advice anyway, but I never would. I'm one of those people. I never take a chance when it comes to things like that.
Well, then I got a real good friend of mine who's an attorney, and I'm always asking him for advice, so...
Oh, he can, because you have to have your license, is what my point. And I'm not licensed here in the state.
No, I got you. Okay. Well, that makes perfectly good sense.
Yeah, he can answer anything anytime, so absolutely.
So one of the other things, now, when you decided, let's back up just a little bit. Did you write anything while you were in high school or anything like that? Did you write any short stories or?
No, we used to, besides my rap writing, we used to do this little newsletter between friends, but it was never printed. It was basically just dirty stories we would share with each other, but again, completely different than anything I'm doing now. So no, really, the initial writing was mostly through my rap, and my short stories would have been when I was younger, like elementary or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a long period in between. It was just, I think a lot of it was after finishing law school. What was it, 10 years of college, you've been so focused on your studies and you're writing research papers and you're doing everything for the school. It was just a way to express myself.
Right.
So I just started writing again then. Just an outlet, a way to express myself after all those years of being in the classroom. And that's not a complaint. I loved the classroom. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like being a student. I know a lot of people hate research papers. I thought they were fun. So, but that being said, you're doing things that are all very specific. You have to write for a specific topic, for a specific audience, for a specific instructor, and now you're writing something completely different, for a completely new audience.
Right. Well, the thing about it is, and now you write horror, like almost horror, don't you? Suspense.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, suspense and horror, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
As of now, I mean, I've wanted to branch out, but it's one of the things is know your audience, and I pretty much know what my readers like. And second of all, it can be very difficult to branch outside of your field. When you look at a lot of the writers out there, you don't see Stephen King writing comedy per se, or you don't see a great comic writer writing horror. Sometimes it's very hard to transcend between the genres. Now, some people can do it very well, but I think a lot of people that do their genre very well stick to it because they know what they're writing and they know their audience.
Now, who is your biggest influence? Who is your favorite author?
I would probably go to Edgar Allan Poe. I go back to the classics. Shelley, I'm trying to think, Stoker, people like that. A lot of the late 1800s, there was just a real, and the mid to late 1800s, there was just a lot of great horror writing going on. I don't know if it's because of the time period, what it was that influenced them, but those are some of the most influential.
Right.
But I'm also highly influenced by cinema, by film. And a lot of my writing has been influenced by the classic horror movies of the early 1930s and 40s.
Oh, really?
They were so well done back then.
Well, now I'm not a big horror fan. I like some horror films like I remember back I think the one horror film, and God forgive me, I don't know the name of it. And it's back when I was a little boy, and my mom and my aunt took us to a drive-in, and all I remember is these people throwing these women and other people on steaks and then eating them and stuff like that, eating the meat, and of course the one classic that still to this day scares the hell out of me is the birds. I do not like birds, so to this day, I'm terrified by birds, believe it or not. I just, but I mean, some of the
you also brought back the ultimate experience. You talked about the drive-in, and that was like the best place to see a movie like that. Now, do you still have drive-ins where you're living?
Yeah, actually, we do. Yes, we do. Matter of fact, we go there all summer long. We are very big on going to the drive-in. You get 2 features for the price of one.
Exactly. Even less than the price of one many times.
Yeah, really, honestly. And, you're in your own car, and it's just that nostalgia, that...
It is, absolutely. We still had some in Indiana when I was living up there. I would go every summer.
Uh-huh.
And they say you got 2 movies for less than the price of one. The snacks are cheaper, the experience, being out in the open air. And it's a romantic entity that's, there's just not enough left anymore, and it's too bad because it really harkens to another day, and it really makes the experience very enjoyable. Right.
And those were when, back in the day when you went to go see a horror film, actually I remember seeing The Shining at a drive-in. Mm-hmm. And that was a not the one like in Twister. I mean, I'm saying there was no tornado, but I remember seeing The Shining on at the drive-in, and that movie right there was like freaky in all itself. I mean,
and it adds to the experience. You're out in the open. There are noises abound besides just the music and sounds of the movie itself. You've got the sounds of nature which are adding to it.
Yeah, like people getting it on or something, right?
Yeah, and if you got a pretty date with you, you got your girlfriend, you're holding hands, your heart's beating already. I mean, it's just an all-around great experience. Come on.
Yeah. I think if anybody goes to see a horror film, it'd be great to see it in the drive-in. I think it just brings a different level of viewing pleasure. Now, you were talking about the earlier films. And I remember actually seeing Dracula. Now, I don't know the year, but it was before the talkies come out, but it was actually one of the first Dracula movies, first horror movies that actually came out. And, I mean, it was scary. I mean, to be honest with you, they did a good job back in those days. Dark shadows.
Well, part of it, the black and white, you've got the whole... the music was great to begin with. They really had a sense of music and timing. The shadows, the light, the way they were able to play that off.
Right.
And the actors tended to be, very well trained. They were very well trained or whatever. It was, a lot of it was experimental. They were getting things right. And today it's like they just go through the motions and, gee, let's throw a lot of money behind special effects, and it doesn't give you the effect that the original creepy movies did.
Right. And so... All right, well, what was one of your most favorite movies then?
I would go back to you mentioned Dracula, Bela Lugosi's Dracula, Karloff's Frankenstein, Wolfman, all of those originals from Universal I loved. The later ones from Hammer Studios. Another film that I love is it's an Italian one called Web of the Spider. And in recent years, last year they did The Conjuring, which I really enjoyed because The Conjuring brought back a lot of the classic movies of the 60s and 70s, like Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist and all that, kind of putting that there, some of the best. Because, again, a lot of movies, and that's in any genre, is so reliant on special effects that the story's dead. You got to have a story behind the film. You can have a lot of great stunts and a lot of great action sequences, but if there's no story behind it,
well, I agree with you because one of the movies that I remember that to this day, I think now I actually I had someone talk about this not too long ago, and I mentioned the name, and he was like, "Yeah, that wasn't really the best movie." And he gave me all these reasons why, and I'm like, you know what? Look, okay, I didn't get it. I said it was Damien, The Omen. Just the way that was done, there wasn't a whole lot of gore, but you were afraid of this kid. You were afraid of him being the Antichrist, and stuff like this. And so they did really good on that movie, I think.
Are you looking at the original or the remake?
The original, of course.
Okay, good. Well, some people today, they didn't realize there was an original. The remake wasn't too bad.
Dude, I'm 50 years. I'll tell you what. Let me help you out here. I'm 50 years old.
Okay.
Okay, so when I'm talking about movies, we're talking about the original Halloween, the original Friday the 13th, the original Freddy. You know what I'm saying? Those are the ones to me were
the originals. As a rule, are always the best. Once in a while, there's a remake that does justice, but they're few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're just rebooting everything, as you know, when it comes to movies. Everything is a reboot. Like, I love comic books, like Spider-Man was completely rebooted with a new cast, and, that was enjoyable, but sometimes you wonder, is it really necessary to do this? Obviously, the studios think so, but...
Well, it's a big moneymaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes they flop. I mean, we talked about Halloween. The original Halloween was so great, and then they rebooted it, and they didn't last as long. You haven't seen a Halloween movie in a while.
Well, the thing about it is the first original Halloween, it scared the hell out of you. It literally, in the newest one, it didn't scare. It's like you already knew the story.
Yeah.
It's like, and you're just like, okay, they're going to make the gore a whole lot better. Okay, and that's exactly what they did. I mean, and this is the influences you get for writing your books, and this is the stuff that makes your mind, flicker inside and come up with these great storylines. And it's those older movies that did it right. I'm on your side. I'm on your side about that. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, They are the influence. And again, there are some new ones that are good, but you're right. A lot of it is just too dependent on, as we say, it's not dependent on story, and story is key.
Well,
and music. I mean, again, you talked about the original Halloween. The music was very minimalistic.
Yes.
But there was something about it that was very eerie, and it really set the tone.
Oh yeah, and especially with Friday the 13th, the soundtrack and that you just knew that Jason was just gonna get him. You just knew it, and you heard that. It's like, oh my God, yeah, I get you. Now you were talking about, you were just actually talking about Spider-Man, and and why they actually chose to remake Spider-Man, and I kind of go with I like Tobey Maguire. He did a real good job. I think the movie was great.
Yeah.
All three of them were really good, but the new ones are more in line with the way that the comic books went. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I agree. He definitely had the attitude of Peter Parker. I just didn't think they had to go back to high school. I thought they could have started him in college. I think
you know what? Yes.
And I'm excited about the new one. It opens Friday, but the thing I've noticed a lot, too, with these movies is they keep bringing back the villain. Spider-Man is one of the greatest rogues galleries in comics.
Uh-huh.
We've seen the Green Goblin. You don't need to bring him back so quickly. Bring in Vulture, bring in Scorpion, bring in Kraven. There's so many great rogues. Bring in the new ones. Why do we have to keep repeating the old rogues when you've got like 100 to choose from? It's not like you're, it's the Punisher and he's maybe got 5 villains to choose from. You're Spider-Man, you got a whole buttload,
Right.
Bring us something new.
Well, the thing about it is that's what it's all about. I mean, we all, it's just like now. I've actually just heard recently. Now this probably will not shock you, but they are remaking Jaws. And to me, that right there is one of the. Would you believe that movie scared me enough not to go in the water for a while? I mean,
really?
Yeah. I mean, I was like, holy crap, man! I seen that kid getting munched on that raft, and I didn't care if it was fresh water or salt water. You weren't going to get me in the water. I was like, I just don't get it. But anyway, yeah, I mean, they're remaking a lot of stuff. But one of the things I really like about your attitude is how you draw from the older films. And there was a lot of good horror films back in the days, and a lot of people don't really watch those anymore. So when your first book you wrote, what was the name of that again?
The Amulet of Elizabeth Bathory.
Okay. What was your inspiration for that, and just give people a kind of idea of how you come up with the idea and the concept?
Well, that was kind of influenced by old Hammer movies, Hammer film studios from Britain. They kind of retook, early on it was Frankenstein and Dracula, and then they did other monster movies. They kind of took like the old Universal movies from the 1930s and 40s and updated them with, putting them in color basically and giving them a British sensibility. So I kind of took the idea of her and I brought it in modern times. And it wasn't just that. A lot of the stories I've written, I've tried to take classic characters and put them into our time without making them lose what they really are.
Right.
So characters from the 1800s and 1700s and bringing them into our day and age.
Right.
So, and I look back, and as a writer, we look back at our early works and we just want to pretend they don't exist, But we improve with each and every book and each and every story, and like the last 3 or 4 books, I'm really proud of. I think I've come a long way as a writer, and you like to see yourself grow.
Right. Well, of course, everybody. I mean, they always say your first book is the one that defines you, and I don't believe that.
No.
Matter of fact, I was actually one time. I actually got to talk to Stephen King one time.
Cool.
Years ago, and I asked him, because it's everybody's the question is, how the hell do you come up with this stuff in your head? And that's not what I really asked him, but how I said it to him is I said, you got a vivid imagination. How do you do it? And he says he'll sit and he can write. Like he said, he's written 2 to 3 books at a time. He'll be writing on one book. He'll have an idea for another book, and he'll zip over and then start writing down ideas, keeping notes and stuff, and then he'll come back to a story. And I said, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
I said, and then he and the one of the things is I'm not a super big fan of Stephen King, but I think one of my most favorite books was actually 2 of them. I liked the not would you believe I forgot the name of it. Cujo was a good one.
Right.
I thought that was a pretty good book. The Stand was actually another one that I thought was pretty good. But The Langoliers, I think it is. That one was very imaginative. You know what I'm saying? A lot of imagination went into that. So
right.
And now reading your books, what are we going to learn about you? What goes on inside your head?
It is a very strange and fascinating place that I think more women especially need to enter. Just kidding.
Oh.
But no, I'm just joking. I haven't had to date in a while, so. But no, the thing is they'll see that I'm very creative, but I'm also influenced by the classics. Those are 2 things you're going to see.
Right.
And sometimes they're going to be like, wow. There is a sense of humor to a lot of my stories. I'm getting ready to pen the second in the collection, the third. It's a series called That Doesn't Taste Like Pork Sausage. It's actually Tales of Political Macabre, short stories, and the main story is about a politician who felt slighted by, he's a state senator, he felt slighted by the other members of the state senate and gets revenge by feeding them. He owns a sausage company on the side, feeds them sausage that is made with human parts.
Now that sounds like that dang movie I just told you about, where they throw the women on the stakes. That's like,
right. The thing is, with something like that, when they read that, they have to realize, boy, he's got a kind of macabre sense of humor. But when you read a lot of my stuff, you know that you can't take some of it seriously. You have to take it with a grain of salt and laugh.
Right.
My friends know me. They're like, wow, he's different. He's funny, you know. He looks, how is it they put it? He looks so normal, and then he opens his mouth.
Well, that's usually what it takes, so.
Yeah. So. But, these are, you have to put a little bit of a sense of humor when it comes to horror, macabre in general, because there are dark stories. A lot of stories can be very dark, and if you keep them dark, you're gonna lose a lot of people. So, I remember growing up as a child, my mom always talked about how funny vampire movies can be, and she was right. If you look at it in a different way, you can laugh rather than scream. You can laugh rather than cry. Did you ever watch The Twilight Zone as a kid growing up?
Yeah.
There was an episode, for instance, with the talking doll. My name is Talking Tina, and I'm going to kill you. Watching that as a kid creeped me out, but when you watch it now, you can try to take the fear away and laugh at it. It's like, okay, how preposterous is this? We have to laugh at it, otherwise we're going to be scared. Right,
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, if my son was here, my son would tell you what I did to him. I actually sat him down when he was little and said, here, watch this movie, Chucky. And to this day, he hates dolls. He goes, that doll messed me up, man. Dad, why would you do that to me? I'm like, I didn't know it was. I thought it was funny. I didn't want you to be afraid of horror films. It didn't work with my son, but it worked with my daughter. My daughter's she used to be a horror film fanatic. I think she still is, but the thing about it is,
I think once you are, you always are. I mean, there's that deep sense. Again, growing up, you used to have creature features on Friday or Saturday nights, or we had USA Up All Night. Things like that on Elvira, and you'd be watching these movies on weekends. It's something that a lot of families would do together on a Friday or Saturday night.
What was it? HBO and Cinemax had those cheesy ass My Bloody Valentine and all that other stuff. It's like
USA Up All Night. I used to watch that all the time. It was hosted by Rhonda Shear, because I remember her because she was really good looking.
Yeah.
And so I would watch that it was either Friday or Saturday night.
some of the movies were stupid, you know.
Oh, of course. But that was the thing. They're meant to be stupid, and they make you laugh because they are so ridiculous. They had one, the title in and of itself was Sorority Babes and the Slime Ball Bolorama. One of the most ridiculous titles, or the other was Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity. And they were some of the most preposterous titles, but they got you hooked, you know, and they were very bad, but they were so bad they were good, if that makes sense. You watch them again and you laugh.
Right. I remember a lot of those. It's like where you always know that the good-looking babe is going to get it, and you just like, man, what a waste, man. It's like...
Oh, I know.
It's like,
I know.
Why don't you kill the ugly girls? You know, it's like the ugly girls were always the big ones, and they died hard. You know, they didn't die so easy. So I was like, man.
What was it called? They call it The Final Girl. I forgot the exact. There was some. This is very off topic. It was interesting. There was some feminist author who wrote about that and actually made her own movie. I think it was called Sorority Sleepover or something like that.
Name sounds familiar.
Yeah, on a feminist point of view, I never saw it, but I heard it was really good. But it seems just a little bit odd. But yeah, those were fun movies, and it was something to look forward to on the weekend. You know, you had a crappy week at school. I mean, come on, who are we gonna lie and say that middle school was the greatest time of our lives? So you know.
So so you can write. So some of your books, like you said, they have a little bit of humor in it, and that's good though. I mean, I've read some pretty serious books, and I'm like really big on Tom Clancy. I can't say his name, Clancy. I like those mystery. I like those books that are, you know, well written and stuff like that. And like I said, if you've ever had to read The Stand, that's a long ass book to read. I mean, you got anything like that?
Yeah, it's a little tough for me to sit behind 900-page books sometimes.
Yeah. Now, how many? Now, what is your cutoff for books? What? I mean, I know that I'm looking at one that says 284 pages. And,
right.
Is that you try to keep it down low so you're not like?
It really depends on the book. A lot of my short story collections are themed together, and it's just how many stories that I think will be beneficial to the book itself. But yeah, I'd say most of them would be anywhere to 200 to 300 pages. There's been a couple that were shorter. Early on when I was writing, I was putting a couple collections together, and the publisher was just like, that's fine, you don't need to put any more. But
right.
I would say, yeah, most of them go around the same page total.
Wow, yeah, that's good. That's good. Because I've heard a lot of authors say that if you draw it out, you lose your audience. And
absolutely.
Yeah. Now I don't know the name of the author. I do if I say it. Like one of my other authors I like he wrote a book. It was a series called Deathlands. It was a really good. It was about the apocalypse at the end of the world and stuff, and these people are traveling around this time machine. Well, it's not a time machine, but they go from one location to the other, teleporter, and it was, I mean, it was like 18 books, and they're really small books, and what really made me mad about that though, and I love reading, is when I get to the end of the book, you have to wait for the new book to come out to pick up where you left off from the last book. And
yeah, it's almost easier just to wait and get them all at the same time.
Well, yeah. Now, is any of your books out on audio tape yet? No. I hear it's pretty expensive to do that, but a lot of people like those audio books. But so.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We haven't even talked about that yet, because it's still an up-and-coming publishing company, and I'm one of their only fiction writers. Most of the stuff that they do is nonfiction, and I kind of do a big chunk of their fiction, I would say.
Oh wow, that's really cool. Now, Dark Asylum.
I started doing nonfiction. As I say, we talked about Eerie America earlier. That was my first nonfiction, and I'm moving into it. But you do what you love, and the horror fiction is my passion. It's what I love.
Right. Now, the Dark Asylum and Other Stories. Tell us about that one.
That is my latest, and I love it. It basically takes us to places that people are kind of held against their will to a degree. There's an old TB hospital, a children's hospital, a reform school, a prison, a sane asylum, places like that where people have been held over the years against their will. And that's the real theme behind the book, and also the buildings in general. I used to be in a ghost hunting group years ago. I did it more for different reasons. I did it kind of for my writing, to be influenced by my writing, and sorry, I heard something. So I did it to be influenced from my writing, to go into old, empty buildings like that in the off hours. A lot of the people were serious, hunters. I was there to kind of investigate the building itself and the history of the place.
Right.
So going to these places, I was able to work on this book, as well as my mom was a nurse in an old small-town hospital that was, in its last years. So going to places like that influenced me. So then I take the idea of abandonment and being in these places against your will and crafted stories with that. Right.
Now, with you talked about being in a paranormal group. In the past few years, I've actually had the opportunity to work with a lot of paranormal teams out there. Not work with them, but listen to them. You have to imagine having a radio station. You hear a buttload of these guys on the radio talking about their experiences. And I'm starting to see where there's a shift where people are getting out of it. It's not as popular as it used to be. Do you feel that has to do with the competition that was out there, that is still out there, or do you feel that it's a dying fad?
I don't think it's necessarily a dying thing. I think it's just some of the groups themselves. I'm trying to put it in the right way without. And a lot of people say you sound snobby when you do that. There's a lot of groups that there's people that are very fanatical within them. Others that are looking just simply at a scientific research. Others who just want to catch something regardless, and others that are just kind of outliers. They're curious. They want to know exactly what's going on. And so sometimes you've got so many groups within the group, and I think that can kind of kill some of the paranormal groups in general. I've seen it happen because you've got so many groups within the group. Kind of like, okay, you remember in high school, you've got your cliques. That might be the best way to put it. You've got your cliques within some of these paranormal groups, and the people that are initially gung-ho and excited don't really like some of the cliques within.
Yeah,
now,
be careful,
I don't
Brenda.
know about your local group. A lot of the groups are wonderful, so I'm not trying to single anything out. I'm just saying some of the things I observed when I was in a particular group.
Well, one of the things is of course, Brenda just laughed at me, dying fad. Brenda, honestly, if you've seen what I see from my end, and I've been around some teams, and a lot of these, it seems like it was so popular the last couple of years, and this year it just seems like the bottom dropped out. There's a lot of TV shows that are not coming back on the air. People have lost interest. Now, I got a question for you, though, and this is a good one. Do you believe that there's ghosts?
Yes, I do. Again, part of it's probably, growing up with both old and new world values, but yeah, I do believe in ghosts. Now, it could be many things. As I was talking with a friend, it could be just energy. What was it? Einstein said, energy cannot be created or destroyed, something to that effect. So it could be the residual energy that lingers on, or it could be a spirit that's trapped. I don't know. The reality of it is I'll just be honest, I don't know the answers to what it is, but I do believe in it. And I believe in the possibility of a lot of other things. We as humans, we want to see proof. And I'll be honest, I never got any proof when I was with the paranormal group. I ended up just honestly having a lot of fun, making a lot of wonderful friends, and getting a lot of great ideas for stories. But I never got definitive proof. All we ever picked up was an EVP, which was kind of cool, but it wasn't enough.
Well,
but it kind of takes a faith to believe in it, but again, there's so much we don't understand,
Right.
Dimensions around us, worlds around us we can't see or understand. So what is a ghost? I don't know.
Well, one of the shows, and everybody knows it's TAPS, ghost hunters, whatever you want to call those guys. And I wasn't really into ghost hunters that much. But when I started working, I found it to be interesting, and I watched some of their shows. But what I hated about the shows is they always build up that suspense in the movie, and then they go to commercial. It's like, ugh.
Yes, yeah. That could be frustrating.
That really pissed me off, to be honest with you. But
I will say that show did a lot for getting people interested in paranormal hunting. They did a really good job of
But I've had people say to me that those guys are all fake and stuff. And there was one particular episode, and when I heard this episode, I really, 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 it kind of really, I'll be honest with you, it nailed the nail in the coffin for me about saying that there is life after. Because it had to do, they were in that hotel, and there was, I think it was the princess, where you literally, through the EVP, you heard her voice, you clearly, not some like that, you heard a voice say, hello, and then they go, well, who is, is this, well, who is this? And I'm like, that can't be real. That was all made for TV. And lo and behold, I started reading about how they do their stuff, and that was an actual thing that they caught. It was one of the biggest things. Not to mention the stuff that they've caught on film too. And I've heard a lot of people say it's all fake. You know what I'm saying?
I have a hard time seeing it all be, because let's be honest, a lot of the episodes they never found anything, or they disproved it. Like, this is pipes, this is this is that.
Right.
They didn't go in to every case thinking that it's haunted. So I always respected that show a lot. I think that there's been other shows. I don't have examples top of my head. I think there have been some of those shows over the years that did do a little bit too much of making everything haunted.
Mm-hmm.
When you bring people in that are saying, oh, I see things, I feel things, there's no proof. It's just someone saying they see or feel. And I'm not meaning any disrespect to those people, but you can't be. And the other thing is orbs. I'm not a big believer in orbs, and I think the ghost hunters did a good job of saying most of the time it was dust. They were like, okay, we don't have anything here. And that's the thing I liked about the show, is they didn't want to make everything out to definitely be haunted. They were willing to be some skepticism along. And I think skepticism, when you're doing that, you have to have a healthy amount, or at least you have to have a healthy skeptic on your team. Otherwise, you're going to believe that, everything is haunted.
All right,
you're going to come off.
And that's why
credibility.
Right, and that's why I think that one episode was the one that defined it for me to say, you know what? There has to be something after we die. And so through all this experiences that you've had and all this, and this is how you come up with your material to write your books.
That's some of it, yeah. Another thing is I'm a restless sleeper. I don't sleep well at first when I go to bed.
Right.
I roll and toss and turn. So a lot of times I come up with an idea. I'll have an idea in my head. Right now I'm working on a, what do you call it, an old, like 1930, an old murder mystery, like turn of the century murder mystery. So I've been running this idea in my head every night as I go to bed. I'm like, I can't sleep, so I'm going to run this idea over and over and over again for the next few nights. And then after I've got this idea pretty solid, I'll write it down on paper and then type it up later.
Mm-hmm.
Strange process, I know. Our minds all work different, and I have a very, very busy mind. You were talking about Stephen King working on 2 or 3 at the same time. I did the same thing. I'm so far ahead of myself. I've got a few editors. I've got probably 9 or 10 book collections that need to be edited right now. It might not be out for another 3 or 4 years because it's just I'm so far ahead of myself on my writing.
Yeah, I wonder how Brenda knew what episode I was talking about. It was actually Mount Washington, the Mount Washington in New Hampshire. So Mount Washington Hotel. That's the one I was.
I have to watch that again. It's been a while.
Yeah.
My favorite was when they had Meatloaf on. 'Cause I love Meatloaf. I watched the enthusiasm, and that was so much fun. But they also did another on the Queen Mary, where there was somebody that tried to make them believe that the betting was pulled, but they were able to prove that someone pranked it. So they couldn't go in and say, "Oh, this place is haunted." They're like, somebody tried to play a trick to make it look like it was
they
haunted.
did that.
So I always like that healthy skepticism.
Yeah, and they also did one where they were at a bar, and the bar was rigged to do the stuff, and the guy, they come out and said, hey, did you rig this? And the guy's like, yeah, it's a joke, and they're all looking at him, okay, what are we here for?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I kind of got an idea. That was awesome. But
the problem on all these shows, anything that's reality-based, they're great shows and great concepts, but a lot of times the networks want to create a little bit of drama to keep people interested, so they might look like people are upset at each other. These people probably are the world's greatest friends and don't really have that drama between them. So, that's sometimes the problem, not with Ghost Hunters per se, but just some of the shows in general. Right.
So when the reason why I'm asking you this is because I want to see how technical involved. You actually answered my question earlier in the show, but I know this one writer. He's actually going to be on our show here in a couple weeks. He's one of my favorite. He's been doing this for about 10 years, and he's put out some pretty good books. You know what he uses to write his books? He uses a voice recognition software, and he'll tell the story. Like we're talking right now, he'll tell a story that's coming right out of his head, and he makes it up as he goes along. And then he does it like forever, for like a couple months, and he talks, and he'll talk for an hour and stuff like this. And then he'll go back and he'll go through the notes, and it's pretty accurate, but he says he has to go and he has to fix things. But when he starts to read what he talks about, he says, this is the way of the future, man. He goes, if I could plug something into my head that could take my imagination, put it out on paper, he said I'd be a multimillionaire. But how do you get it from your mind to paper? And that's the hard part.
That's pretty cool. I've never even thought about something like that, but that is a great way of doing it.
He says now you got to understand how he does it though. He doesn't just do the whole book. He'll talk, and until he doesn't have it in his head anymore, and then he'll come back. He'll talk some more, and it all records it. And then he goes back and he edits it, and he of course, it doesn't know how to do paragraphs. It doesn't know how to do some certain things. But when he reads it, he says when he reads it, he starts to remember what he talked about. And if he has to change things, he might have to take a paragraph, move it here, whatever the case may be. And it's like he said, this is the future of book writing. He says, now, years ago, the voice recognition wasn't that good. But nowadays, the software and everything is so much better. It learns your voice. And he says the more that you talk, the more it learns how you enunciate your words. And so it becomes more and more accurate as time goes by. So technology is great, right?
Yeah, it is. It's just waiting for it to catch up with you sometimes. Just like the price on it. You mentioned your age and your generation. You remember like when the microwaves first came out, how they were like over $1,000.
Oh God, yes.
$50.
Or the the Sony Walkman.
Yeah.
$800.
Yeah, I used to love that thing.
I remember the first one I had was like $500, and I was like, I couldn't even take it to school. I wanted to take it to school, but my mom wouldn't let me take it to school. So.
Oh, that's understandable. I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
But now you can get all these things for so cheap, but some of the technology that goes to help us, like you're talking there, is still kind of expensive. But in time, it'll go down as well. A lot of screenwriting software is going down. A lot of I'm trying to think about things to go along with writing and recording.
Right.
People can record music in their own homes now. They can record a CD rather than going to the studio. Some people can do it in their own homes.
They're doing it. They're doing
Yeah.
it, and this is why I said, maybe, I think the name of that software is Dragon Speaking or whatever it is what he uses. And I've asked a couple authors have had. I said, do you use anything like that? Oh, no, I just do it. I have one guy that still uses the punch typewriter.
Wow.
Well,
there's a romantic element to that, but it's too difficult. Going back, getting the whiteout strip to I haven't really used a typewriter since high school when they still went between computer keyboards and electric typewriters. That's a long time ago.
He goes, what he says, it just, when you read it, it just feels better in your hands when you're reading it. And I'm like, you're dumb. I mean.
I don't have the.
Oh. We just lost him here. We will get him back on here. I guess he's one of those deals where we'll get him right back in here real quick. For some reason, his phone went dead. Oh, here we go. Are you back with me?
Yeah, we have a storm here, so the call dropped. I apologize.
That's okay. I figured.
Again, technology, it's great, but
it has its flaws.
As they are, you'll still have a call dropped. So.
Well, anyway, why don't you go ahead and tell the audience how they can buy your book. I know that they can get it from Amazon and your fan page, website if you have one, how they can get in touch with you, and everything else. Why don't you go ahead and...
Absolutely. Facebook is where I'm on the most. Find me at Kevin Eads on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter. I'll have to link my Twitter site to my Facebook because I don't know my Twitter name at the top of my head.
Okay.
Also, the books are available on Amazon.com. Dark Moon Press is where you can find the Dark Asylum or Fountain of Blood, which is my other new one, which is really good. It's an homage to all the classic horror tales.
Okay.
And Eerie America, which is the first nonfiction, it's with myself and E.R Venor, Travel Guide to the Macabre. That's on Schiffer Publishing, Schiffer Books, as well as on Amazon.
Right.
And that's a project we're really excited about. We've filmed a sizzle reel for a TV show that we're trying to show right now and trying to get picked up, of course, and quite a few other projects we're trying to get involved in right now. So.
Right. Well, that's kind of cool. Hey, now, you seem you're a real interesting guy, and I think I want to get you back on my show here sometime soon. What's your views, the political views? Do you have any?
I do, but I'm very careful to espouse because I have fans on both sides of the aisle. So
Are you trying to tell me you ride the fence?
About that personal one-on-one, but I keep that off of any of my writing and such.
Well, I wouldn't expect you to put it in your writing, but I'd like to have you on one of my shows one of these times. We have a show that's called Night at the Round Table, and we get a bunch of people together. And I like to get people who have a good imagination. Not only that, but do have background and logic. And it seems to me like you're a very logical person, and I like that. So
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is you and I did really good tonight. I mean, we talked about your book, and and to me, I think you just keep doing what you're doing, and connect with your fan base, and get out there and do more radio shows. Get out there and get that name out there, and to me, I think I want to get this the Dark Asylum. I want to check that out. I think I'm going to buy that. So I think it would be a good book. Or what one would you recommend for me to read first?
Fountain of Blood. Fountain of Blood and Dark Asylum are the two I recommend. They're my most recent, and they're my best.
Can I expect to be scared or just amused?
I'm sorry?
Will I be scared or will I be more amused?
I would say a mixture. It depends on the story. Each story is different, My story of the mummy going from Chicago to Memphis, he gets picked up by a truck driver. I find it kind of amusing. There's some elements of horror.
Wait a minute. This mummy gets picked
up
by a truck driver?
Like a cowboy. So.
Wait a minute. Say that again. A mummy gets picked up by a truck driver.
Yes, he's been resurrected at a museum, and remember, in ancient Egypt, Memphis is one of the old ancient capitals, so he hears about a Memphis. He wants to go to Memphis from Chicago, so he gets picked up by a truck driver to make it down there. So there's going to be some humor on that, obviously.
Well, first off, yeah, I mean, a truck driver picking up a mummy, I don't know where you got that one, but that's a good, we got a lot of spooky truck drivers out there, so...
Yeah, no, my dad was a truck driver, so I've heard the story.
Yeah, believe me, I used to drive trucks, so yeah, I've heard, believe me, I've heard a lot of stories. But hey, I want to thank you for coming on the show, and I really enjoyed hearing about your book. I really enjoyed the conversation, really, to be honest with you. I enjoyed it all. I mean, I like your choice in movies. Doesn't sound like we're too far apart on, taste when it comes to the old films and stuff like that. I mean, actually, I thought the Brady Bunch was a horror film. I mean, that was a horror film in all itself, But I mean,
oh, no doubt.
Do you want to hear something that's really? You want to hear something that's going to make you really laugh? The Brady Bunch, the new movie that came out some years ago, And
right, yes.
That movie, believe it, I hate to say this on the air, that movie freaked me out. That little Cindy, I literally, when I watched that movie, I had nightmare about that little girl freaking, just annoying the hell out of me. It was scary. I was actually...
Children, though, can be one of the scariest things in movies. You mentioned The Omen, and remember how scary that child was.
Yeah, he was.
Sometimes without never saying a word, just the eyes of a child can be the sweetest or the scariest thing.
So that's why
I don't have children of my own. I've only got
godchildren.
You take them out of the box, you play with them, you put them back in the box. It's kind of how they put it. Horrible.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to children. One day, when I meet the right woman, it's all well and good. But until then,
yeah. Well, you got to find a woman that's just as interesting as you. I mean, or the opposite. It's just like it's one of those deals.
You got to be with someone that you enjoy. You got to share at least some similar interests. And as I say, it'd be very hard for me to be with someone if she doesn't like horror movies, because that's a big chunk of what I watch. It's not the only thing I watch, obviously, but if you don't like what's important to the other person, then it's very hard to have a good relationship.
Well, there you go. That and you hear that, ladies and gentlemen, that came right. That's good advice too. That is real good advice. Then
again, I've never been married, so what do I know about advice?
Well, I've done it 4 times, so.
Wow. Well, I'm hoping to get to do it once. So, ladies, send me private messages. Just kidding.
Listen to this guy. He's hitting on women. He's all right. Should we put your well, I don't even want to say that. That would be bad. Actually, you're a good guy. I really appreciate it. But I do want to have you back on the show.
I would love to. Thank you.
And we can get you in on some other conversations. We can talk about. Actually, believe it or not, I'm trying to get Brenda on the show. I want Brenda to get on the show because I want to talk about her. I want to talk about her being a paranormal investigator so bad. But she's the most shyest person in the world. So we got to get her.
That's too bad. She's seems like a very nice and friendly lady, so I've always enjoyed chatting with her.
Oh, she's just incredible. She's incredible. You're believe it or not, your Twitter account is Kevin. Your EAD ads, right? Eds or
Eads.
Eads. Why do I?
Yeah.
Kevin Eads 3.
Don't worry about it. Nobody gets it right.
Kevin Eads 3. And that's it. It's hard to. Yeah. Well, if I had better English in those days, you know what I'm saying. But anyway.
You Michiganders, just kidding.
Yeah. But anyway.
They love out of Hoosiers, so I can't say anything.
Yeah. We don't talk about the Hoosiers. You guys are in our cesspool. No, I'm just kidding. You're below us, so we're above you. So that's how we feel. But anyway,
only in geography.
There you go. All right.
Otherwise, we're all Midwesterners, so I think we're all great.
Yeah. Except Brenda. Brenda's just too cute. I love her. I love listening to her talk. I could listen to her talk all day. I seriously could. I just love the way she talks. But anyway, I'm probably embarrassing her right now. But anyway, again, thanks for being on the show, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you for listening tonight. And again, from the bottom of my heart, thanks for being on the show. We'll see you next time. And thanks for listening. Good night. You're listening to GHTR, nationwide podcast radio, www.GHTalkRadio.com.